We're going to open up. We're going to begin and end with music because music is the ultimate healer and inspiration. And up first we have a Wilkes student to sing a beautiful song it was born of the African American struggle, but it's also a song of hope. And if we all stick together, there's lots of hope, and we can get each other through all the struggles. So real quick, we're going to start with the chant, and I'm going to say, when we rise, we win. When we rise, we win. When we stick together, we win. When we hope, we win. When we rise, we win. When we vote, we win. Here is Machi. I cannot pronounce your last name. I practiced it, but I still can't. Dewarataka. Okay. No, I but anyway, she's going to sing this beautiful song.
Use this microphone. That one's not wired up for the video. There you go.
Hello, my name is Machi Demoriaco. I'm a senior theater arts major at Wilkes University, and here's Lift Every Voice. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Hi everyone, my name is Cindy Malcomus. I'm from Action Together, Northeast PA, one of the hosts of the march. Welcome everyone. We got the snow, so we're going to just do everything here. We're not going to have a march today, which really disappoints me, but what are you going to do? We have to make sure everybody's safe. Okay, so for all of you that haven't met us yet, Action Together is a progressive grassroots organization. We educate people on and advocate for people on what's happening in our society today. This year we have some partners for the Women's March. We have Nepa Now and Queer Nepa that have joined us to put on this march. This is our second one that we've done. And I think everybody should know that we're an official sister march, so we've been doing this in conjunction with the national organization, which is kind of cool too. So the message of the Women's March is women rising. To me, that phrase suggests an awakening. Women all around the country and the world have been becoming, right? What I mean by that is we're finding our voices and our power. So there's no turning back now, women, right? Yeah. Okay. So today we have some really exceptional speakers, all strong women, and Congressman Cartwright too, who've made a difference in people's lives. Women who strive to be the best version of themselves that they can be in order to help others become the same. I was going to say we're going to march after that, but after we finish the speakers, then we're going to have some more music to help us on our way. So without any more waiting, I'm going to introduce our first speaker is Marilyn Calderon, who is a teacher and community advocate. Come on up, Marilyn.
Oh my God, I am the first, but I am so happy to be here. I am glad to be here. And because my accent, I'm gonna be start with one quote that I'm gonna be doing in Spanish. They say, caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar, de Mahatma Gandhi. Hola a todos, mi nombre es la señora Marilyn Calderon. My name is Marilyn Calderon. I am a teacher and a community advocacy. When they invite me here and I say, oh my God, with these accents, how I can do it. I say, listen, I born with the accent and I'm so proud with the accents. And this is the reason I understand here for my sisters and brother that is in the island now, sleeping outside, and then no light and no water. I am come from Puerto Rico, the beautiful island that is USA citizens. One of the things is, my kid asks me, why, mommy, why you going to be do this again? And I say, because I care. Because I'm not going to be silent anymore. Because I am woman and I'm proud to be a woman. Because I'm raising woman and I'm raising good people in my house. That's the reason I am here. Winning right for woman is about more than giving opportunity to any individual woman or girls. It is about changing how countries and community work. It's involvement in changing the law and policies, winning heart and mind, and investing your time in a strong organization and movement than this one. That is the reason we are here together with the kindness, with the love. Many other organizations that I'm working for, like for example, Put the People First, Nepa Healthcare, and Global Young Leader, as Heritage, Make a Road, Action Together, and all of this, we have one thing in common. We're gonna be a stand for other because we care, because we are kind and we have many love for every person in this country, in this state, and in this county. We're gonna be staying here and in other places because we believe in our progressive people. We believe we can do changes. That is the reason I am here. But well, as I mentioned, I am Puerto Rican. And I was struggling because I am Puerto Rican. Even I raised as a United States citizen. I'm born in United States. My grandma and my grandparents and my great-great-grandma born in United States. But when we moved here, they treat us as foreigners. We are foreigners in our own land. That is incredible in 2020. But what is that? Why we start here? Is because this might. For woman, as a Latina, I'm gonna be trying to explain something. And I'm writing everything in front of my kids. I'm like, Mommy, how are you writing many stuff? And I say, because I want every person understand. Hispanic and Latino in United States. Not all of them are the same thing. Many other is Hispanic, other are Latino, and like me, I am Hispanic, Latino, Puerto Rican, and USA citizen, and I am here. The people agree sometimes of the stereotype about the Latino woman identity. Sometimes the people have this stereotype that all Latino women, we are in the welfare. Sometimes the people thinking we are immigrant. Sometimes we are no Spanish speaker or no English speaker. I'm gonna be explaining something. The Latino, I want to take the second to explain what is the Hispanic and Latino is. Hispanic is the people who come in originated for the Spanish speaker country. For example, if you have people come from Spain, they is Hispanic. Okay? But Latino is the people that come from Latin America. For example, many Latino no speak Spanish, like Brazil or Haiti. In Haiti, I speak French. In Brazil, I speak Portuguese. That's the reason this misconception of Latino and Hispanic. Not all the Hispanic or Latino are immigrant. Not all the Hispanic or Latino are in welfare. Not all the Hispanic and Latino speak Spanish. For example, the 30% of the population in 2030 is going to be Latino. Does not mean there's going to be speaking Spanish. The 93% of the Latino are USA citizens because the heritage is come from all the different countries. That is misconception, and that is the myth. We have the power of breaking this myth. We have the power to help our women and girls in other countries, but with this misconception, we don't gonna be understand. My brothers and sisters, Hispanic and Latino, have the same human right that we are here in United States. And I believe we are together, we can do something and better world to live because we are brothers and sisters, because we only have one race. You know what with us? Human race. Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn. Our next speaker is Sherry Jacobson, who is from Moms Demand Action. Here she is.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here. Thank you so much for having me. I think 4 years in, if you can get a good turnout for a Women's March in Miami, it's great. But if we can get a turnout here in this weather for the Women's March, we know this is a movement, right? This is a movement. We are not going away. We are here to demand our rights because women's rights are human rights. I'm here today specifically to talk about the ways in which gun violence is a woman's issue. And our organization, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, is a nonpartisan, all-volunteer organization. We have chapters in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. And we are here because gun violence is a woman's issue. It's a woman's issue in two ways. One of them is really bad, and the other is really good. So let's do the bad news first. Particularly when it comes to intimate partner violence, women have a lot to worry about. There are about 1 million women in this country alive today who have been shot or shot at by an intimate partner. Every month, 52 women are killed with a firearm by a domestic partner. Unacceptable. Thank you. And this can stop. This has to stop. There is really good legislation that can make it stop. And we need our legislators to enforce and to make good laws and make sure that they are enforced. We were really fortunate in Pennsylvania in 2018. We got a bill through the Senate and the House in our state government to disarm dangerous domestic abusers. It was the first good gun laws that Pennsylvania had in about 15 years. Thank you, Governor Wolf. Right now, thank you, Governor Wolf. Right now, in our federal government, we have the Violence Against Women Act, right? That act needs to be reauthorized. We got a really great bill through the House. Thank you, Representative Cartwright, big friend to gun violence prevention. Not only did people like Representative Cartwright support that, but we got 33 Republicans supporting that bill. And what did this reauthorization do that was so critical? It updated the Violence Against Women Act, bringing it into the 21st century. It closed a dangerous loophole in there regarding dating partner violence, right? This is 2020. We can't have a Violence Against Women Act that only addresses domestic partners. We also need to include dangerous dating partners. Now, Senator Feinstein introduced an identical bill in the Senate, and guess what? It is languishing there. Jody Ernst said she was going to introduce a good bill, but it's a good bill if you're the NRA. It's not a good bill if you're a woman. So what we need to do is let our Senator Toomey, know that he has got to support a robust, effective bill for the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. And we can thank Senator Casey for his support too. So please do that. You can see how critical it is that we have the right legislators in our representing us, right? And so here's where the good news is. The good news about the relationship between women and gun violence is that we are leaders in the movement to prevent gun violence. We are all leaders in this movement, and we have been really effective with our advocacy. We got behind candidates in Virginia, and with other like-minded candidates, we changed the Virginia government now to a gun sense majority. We have fabulous representatives coming out of Pennsylvania, like Representative Cartwright, women like Madeline Dean, Chrissy Houlihan, Susan Wild, Mary Gay Scanlon. Some of these women came through Moms Demand Action and decided to run for office, right? And right now, we've got somebody waiting in the wings to take over a job in the State House, Jessica Bryn Smith. Joanna Bryn Smith. We just met. I'm thrilled to meet her. So we have got to get behind gun sense candidates. How can you do that? You can text READY to 64433. This will get you hooked up with our organization. You can get emails. You can find out what's going on and when. In case you can't tell, I'm a teacher. You can text events to 64433. This will let you know about what's going on in this area. Because you know what? The last time I came here, there were no Moms Demand Action groups here. But since I was here last year, we have a group in Lackawanna County that's based in Scranton. We have a group in Luzerne County that's based out of Kingston. Thank Katie Walsh for our Lackawanna group and Melissa Janoski for our Luzerne County group. And we have a new group forming in Hazleton, if that's closer to you. Let me keep these available. That will be run by Annie Mendez. This is a group that will be serving Spanish as well as English speakers. So now is the time to get involved. Pennsylvania is one of 2 states our organization is designated as an electoral priority for 2020. Scranton is one of 4 metropolitan areas in this state. We are going to be sending resources here. We are going to be getting out the vote. We are going to be supporting gun sense candidates because this is what we are working on this year, making sure that we have legislators who care about women and care about gun violence. So please join me. Text, READY, text events, get involved. As we say in our movement, it is never too soon to prevent gun violence. It's only too late. Now is the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry, for some really great information. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Helen Davis, who's a professor of women's studies at Wilkes University. Dr. Davis.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I was asked to speak about attempts to control our reproductive lives and our futures. To do so, we must be very clear about what is at stake when we are discussing reproductive rights.
You're in the wrong place.
Our rights to make our own decisions about when and if we have children, how many children we have, and how we experience sexual intimacy affect every aspect of our lives. If we do not have control over the most basic functions of our bodies, we do not have control over our futures, our health, sometimes even our very survival. The recent onslaught of abortion bills across the country have made very clear that this fight is not about caring about the lives of women or babies. They are about control. If they were about life, then laws would not be proposed that would make a 10-year-old incest victim carry a baby to term. If they were about life, then laws would not be proposed that take away or seriously restrict the ability of doctors to work with their patients to make decisions about treatment. If they were about life, they wouldn't have to lie and make fake evidence to skew the reality of procedures. If they were about life, they would at least attempt to understand how pregnancy works and respect science. I don't know about you, but I really hate the labels pro-life and pro-choice because one cannot be pro-life without believing that the person who may be carrying the child's life also matters. The Declaration of Independence asserts that we have the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that it is the government's job to secure those rights. There is literally no way that a person can have the right to life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness without reproductive rights. We also know that the history of our country has always been a history where rights were really only meant for some. The rights of those in native tribes, many of whom had matriarchal cultures like the Lenape and Susquehannock people on whose land we stand, were obliterated to make way for the rights of the white male Europeans who claimed the land as their own. But it is also a country where we do not stop fighting for the equality we deserve. It took until 1920 for any women to have the right to vote, until 1968 for women of color to be able to vote, and until 1973 for women to have the legal right to an abortion, and until 2020 for 38 of our states to vote for women to have constitutionally equal rights. So here we are on the cusp of the 100th anniversary of those first women's votes, and efforts are underway to strip many people of their rights to vote, to close polling places and gerrymander our districts to steal political power, and to strip all people with uteruses of the right to control their own bodies. It terrifies me as a woman and as the mother of a 13-year-old daughter to see the hate-filled, medically and ethically ignorant bills that have been proposed and even passed across our country. Bills that treat us as nothing more than incubators with no rights of our own. But like our predecessors, we will not sit quietly while they try to control the narratives of our futures. We are here to say that we will not be silent. But you know what? I've been thinking about this rush to pass so many bills to take away our power and to steal court seats. Why now? That pressure has never completely gone away, but the attacks on our freedoms have gotten concentrated and vicious in the last few years. And as I told those of you who came to our summer demonstration, I think I know why. I think they're afraid. They feel us coming. They see our strength. They saw how close they were to having the first woman president. They have seen the strength of representatives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and others who charged fearlessly into Washington, D.C. in 2018. They know that the tide is turning and their control over us is slipping through their fingers. They see the Generation Z is coming of age with far less binary and restrictive ideas about gender identity and sexual orientation, and that those of us in previous generations are more willing to be vocal, proud, and loud. And guess what? They should be scared because we are awake, we are organizing, we are voting, we are running for office, and as you can see with some of the fellow speakers who will be following after me, we are winning. We will take our power. And there is nowhere in this country where that power is more important and more effective than right here in this swing county, in this swing state of Pennsylvania. Right? So let's get to work. To win this fight, we need to be very clear about what reproductive rights entail because it's not enough to protect Roe versus Wade. We are not content to protect the ground we won in 1973. We need to push for more. Reproductive rights includes the absolute authority for us to have the power to decide when, if, and how we conceive, carry, deliver, and adopt children. And if we do want children, then reproductive rights also means that we have the right to safe, supportive prenatal and postnatal care that treats our lives, our pain, and our health as important. Did you know that the U.S. maternal mortality rate has more than doubled from 10.3 per 100,000 births in 1991 to 26.4 in 2015? Over 700 women die of complications related to pregnancy each year in the United States, and 2/3 of those deaths are preventable. Much of that increase has been borne by women of color, who are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. Our country has the worst rate of maternal mortality in the developed world. Our infant mortality rate is also significantly higher than similar countries. We averaged 5.8 deaths per 1,000 live births in 2017, compared to the average in other countries of 3.9 deaths. And if that doesn't sound like a big difference, that's over 22,000 babies a year. If you want to know what's possible, Iceland's rate is 0.9 deaths per 1,000 births. So if this issue is really about saving lives, we would focus our energies on ensuring that all people have access to medical care, birth control, reproductive health education, and support. We would not be denying funding to Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest provider of sex education and health care for our most underserved populations. By the way, if it were really about saving lives, we also wouldn't stand by while babies and kids are locked in cages, torn away from their parents, sold away for adoption, and lost in the system. Finally, I want to remind us all that it is important that fighting for reproductive rights means fighting for reproductive rights for all of us. It means recognizing that some of us are more vulnerable to assault and lack of access to care. Trans folks, our sisters of color, and those of us without health insurance or money for reproductive care face particularly dangerous challenges. And we must all be diligent in ensuring that their struggles are at the forefront of our fight. In an essay about women's rights, one of my favorite writers, as some of you know, Audre Lorde, states that I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. She also teaches us that there is no such thing as a single-issue struggle because we do not live single-issue lives. Reproductive rights are intrinsically linked to other rights, and we cannot forget that the intersections between all of our fights for justice. We must understand that all of us are negatively affected when some of us are treated unfairly. To be united, we must care about the difficulties and the disparities faced by those who are different from us, as well as those who are like us. And we must commit to using our power to create space for others' power to grow. Elsewhere, Audre Lorde also explains, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. In other words, if you are focused on the vision of the world you are striving to make real, when you see yourself as having the power to enact change, that strength of character and the hope and determination that comes with it will help you overcome your fear. So let us dare together. Let us dare to be powerful. Let us dare to insist that our lives matter, that our black sisters' lives matter, that our bodies are our own, and that we will not stand quietly by while our rights are further stripped away. We are here. We are loud. And we will speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Our next speaker is Emmaloni, president of Queer Nepa. Em?
Assalamu alaikum, Wilkes-Barre. My name is Emmaloni. I'm a transgender Muslim activist and founder of Queer Nepa, an LGBT organization rooted in nonviolence. Violence against trans women and non-binary people, especially trans women of color, continues to be a rampant issue. On January 3rd, Dustin Parker, a 25-year-old trans man, was shot and killed in Oklahoma. His death is the first known violent trans death in the U.S. this year. A businessman and LGBTQ activist Parker is survived by his wife and 4 children. Sadly, this sort of violence is happening right here in our own community. In one instance, I learned of a local trans man that took his own life after my Trans Day of Remembrance Vigil. Learning this was heart-wrenching. It's my hope to see this cycle of violence be broken, and in its place a more just and peaceful community. Trans people have a right to exist without fear of losing their job, the roof over their head, or their life altogether. I encourage all of you here to be loud and vocal advocates for trans and non-binary rights. Call on your legislators to pass laws that protect the queer community and raise up local voices of queer folks. With groups like Queer in PA, Nepa Now, Action Together, and the Rainbow Alliance, there are so many ways you can get involved. When we stand together like we're doing here today, we can create real, everlasting change. Thank you.
Thank you, Em. Our next speaker is Diane Dreyer from the Gas Drilling Awareness Coalition of Luzerne County. Diane?
Oh boy. What better place to talk about climate change than right here in Pennsylvania on top of the Marcellus Shale, the center of a natural gas boom known as fracking. The Back Mountain, just miles from here, is a pipeline hub with 4 major natural gas pipelines and a 5th in the process. The newest pipeline under construction will carry Pennsylvania natural gas to an export terminal in Maryland, where the gas is liquefied and shipped to Asian markets. The drilling of a natural gas well can require 1,000 heavy diesel truck trips of equipment, water, and chemicals. Millions of gallons of fresh water, along with thousands of gallons of toxic chemicals, are used to frack each well. After the well is fracked, about half of the fracking fluid remains in the ground. The rest of it comes up out of the well and is considered industrial waste. Each well may be fracked up to 10 times during its productive life. Fracking requires large volumes of fresh water. The Susquehanna River Basin Commission estimates that required water withdrawal for fracking is 60 million gallons a day. Because the water becomes contaminated, it can never be returned to the watershed. We are contaminating 60 million gallons of water a day, 365 days a year, that will be then thrown away, never to return to the water cycle for use by our children and our grandchildren. In addition to the effects of fracking on the ground and the water, vast quantities of raw methane are released into the atmosphere during the extraction, processing, and transportation of natural gas. Raw methane is a powerful greenhouse gas that is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide over a 20-year time scale. The gas industry says that natural gas burns cleaner than coal. But experts say that if you factor in all the emissions that occur during the drilling, extraction, storage, and transportation, natural gas is actually worse for climate change than coal. More devastating fires in California and Australia, persistent drought in the Southwest, record flooding in Europe and Africa, a heat wave, of all things, in Greenland. Climate-related natural disasters are becoming more frequent, more deadly, more destructive, with growing human and financial costs. And yet, Trump keeps gutting climate change regulations. The Earth is warming at a much faster rate than science had predicted. Scientists say that the acceleration of ice loss and other climate change effects have brought the world dangerously close to abrupt and irreversible changes, or tipping points. International leaders agreed that the world should act urgently to keep the Earth's average temperature increases well below 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100. Yet climate experts warn that global temperatures are on course for a 5.4 to a 9 degree Fahrenheit increase by 2100. The Trump administration itself has predicted almost a 7 degree Fahrenheit increase in temperature by 2100. In an environmental impact statement, the Trump administration made a startling assumption. On its current course, the planet will warm a disastrous 7 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100. The irony is that this report was written by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to justify Trump's decision to freeze federal fuel efficiency standards for cars and light trucks. Their rationale is that while freezing fuel efficiency standards would increase greenhouse gas emissions, that increase would add just a very small drop to a very big, hot bucket. The science and the warnings are all pointing in the same catastrophic direction, and yet Trump continues to call climate change a Chinese hoax, and Republican politicians continue to bury their head in the sand on climate change. We all know that climate change is an existential crisis. It threatens the very existence of those who will come after us. So, when your children and grandchildren ask you, what did you do about climate change? What will you tell them? What can we all do? An easy internet search will yield hundreds of changes, some small and some big, that we all can make in our daily lives to lessen our carbon footprint. Here are some suggestions. Livestock accounts for more than 15% of all greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. This may be hard to hear, but experts tell us that the single biggest thing that each of us can do to reduce our carbon footprint is to stop eating, or at least to eat less, meat and dairy every day. The plastics that we all use every day are made from fossil fuel byproducts. Half of all plastic products are used for a few minutes and then thrown away. Whether we put them in the trash or in the recycling bin, 91% of plastic bags, water bottles, plastic-lined coffee cups, utensils, straws, etc. are not recycled. They end up in our oceans and landfills. Bill McKibben, a leading climate activist, says that if we want to do something about climate change, we should follow the money. The biggest banks that issue the credit cards that many of us use, J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Citibank, and Bank of America, are also the biggest funders of the fossil fuel industry. He suggests using credit cards from banks and credit unions that don't finance the fossil fuel industry. It may be inconvenient for us to eat less meat and dairy every day. It may be inconvenient for us to use fewer plastics every day. It may be inconvenient for us to switch credit card companies. It may be inconvenient for us all to become climate change activists. But it would be unforgivable for us to leave a planet that is not habitable for human life to our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. What will you tell them when they ask you what you did to try to save their planet? We can all do more, much more. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Our next speaker is Emily Aikens, who is a student and youth advocate.
I wasn't able to comprehend why women were treated differently. I wasn't able to understand why men were given the right to vote, but women weren't. I couldn't understand why men were able to get certain jobs, but women couldn't get those same positions. Over time, that incomprehension grew into an advocacy for women's rights. I've hosted political discussion panels. I have volunteered at a local women's homeless shelter. But the main focus of my advocacy has been working to get free menstrual products in all Pennsylvania public schools. I started going to representatives and asking them to start advocating for this issue because it is such an important one. There are thousands of girls across this state who go to school every day scared that they won't have enough products to get them through the day. Over time, after I starting this initiative, I became scared asking people to sign a petition to get free menstrual products in the schools. I was still in high school when I started it. I'm still in high school now. I didn't know what people would say when a 15-year-old freshman came up to them in Walmart and asked them about free pads and free tampons. Trust me, I got a lot of interesting responses. Some men can't even say the word tampon. Some men call it that time of month, not a period. And that's what it is. It is a period, and we need products for it in schools. That's right. That's right. Just a little background on the issue so you know how important it is for us to do this. Around 16.7% of children in Pennsylvania live under the poverty line, according to TalkPoverty.org. About 2/3 of women under the poverty line nationally couldn't afford to buy both food and menstrual products at the same time. This issue comes up every day in our schools. As someone who is still in school, I can attest to the fact how important it is for free tampons and free pads to be provided. Girls shouldn't have to use toilet paper as makeshift pads. Parents shouldn't have to leave work in the middle of the day so they can bring their children tampons. This issue needs to be addressed now. Let me ask you a question. If schools provide free tissues and free toilet paper for students, what is the difference in providing free tampons and providing free pads? There is none. The only possible counter-argument is the cost, and that is virtually non-existent. In fact, providing free menstrual products would only take up 0.003% of Governor Wolf's educational budget for the 2019-2020 school year. There's no excuse. Now, there's currently been a bill introduced in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. It's House Bill 1708, and it would provide free tampons and free pads for every public school girl in Pennsylvania. Right now, it's encountering resistance from Representative Soni of Erie, Pennsylvania. He's the chair of the Education Department in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. This is where I ask all of your help in writing to his office. Share your stories about why it is so embarrassing when you bleed through your clothes in school and don't have any products to fix it. I will post his contact information on the Nepa Women's March wall. Please use it. Please write to him and address this issue. Not having menstrual products in schools is just one of the many examples of why women are disadvantaged in society today. But I see all of you here today, and I see us making a difference. I see us making strides towards women's equality. We need to continue this fight. Women are becoming heads of corporations. Women are going to college. Women are holding public office. And that starts with all of you being here today. Thank you.
Well, that's our future. I think we have a lot to look forward to, right? All right. Our next speaker is Dr. Jessica Ann Rothschild, Scranton City Council member.
Hey everyone, feeling a little cold?
Thank you all for being here. This just shows your commitment, and it's very important that we're here today, despite the weather and the conditions. Thank you so much to Nepa Now, Action Together Nepa, and Queer Nepa for putting this march together today. It's incredibly important that we keep marching and coming back each year to this. And thank you for having me. It is an honor. So for those of you who might not know me, my name is Jessica Rothschild. I recently began serving on the Scranton City Council after being elected in November. Thank you. I'm the first woman in a long time to be elected to Scranton City Council. I'm the only woman serving on our council currently, and I'm the first LGBTQ person to be on Scranton City Council. I work as a physical therapist, and I live in Scranton with my wife Bridget and our dogs Dublin and Kenzie, who many people know, and she promised and made me promise that I would mention the dogs because we're those lesbians. I also serve on the Pennsylvania Democratic State Committee, and I'm on the Pennsylvania Commission for Women. I want to tell you a little bit about my story quickly, and then I'll also be reading a statement on behalf of Governor Tom Wolf in my capacity as a commissioner. The Women's March began 3 years ago in 2017. At the time, I was president of Equality Pennsylvania, which is a statewide LGBTQ organization, and I was looking for more ways that I could contribute. I wanted to see more women and more LGBTQ people holding elected office in the legislature, representing us, representing me. I had just ran to be a delegate to go to the Democratic National Convention, and I lost. But I really enjoyed campaigning and meeting some amazing people along the way. I had a friend at the time who was the executive director of Emerge Pennsylvania, who encouraged me to apply to their training program for Democratic women. The program provided me with the skills, the training, and the network that I needed to be able to run for office. I was undecided on applying to the program until the day that the election happened in November 2016. And then it was a really simple decision for me. I knew that something had to change. I put in my application immediately, and then that January 2017, I started the Emerge trainings that would then last for 6 months. I wanted to make sure that I was prepared to run for office, and our cohort of about 25 women became very close during that time. And at first I thought maybe it was because we were devastated by the election that we all really formed that bond. But then I think that we're bonded by the fact that we knew that we were going to all do great things, and we would be there to support one another. I would not be in the position that I am today if it had not been for Emerge. And guess what? This weekend, they're starting up another cohort. They're in trainings right now in Philadelphia, and I have some friends down there, which I'm very excited about. Programs like these are really vital in helping to empower women to run for office. And over the past few years, women have come a long way. Look at just how many women have run for office and won. We are winning. We've made progress locally here in Northeast Pennsylvania, where we often feel like we're 20 or 30 years behind the times, right? So we need to, if you're gonna ask me what we should do next for 2020, in order to make sure that our voices are heard, you could probably guess that I'm gonna say we need to elect more women, right? We need to elect a new president. And some other ways that you could get involved is to volunteer for an organization, like one of the organizations that are here today. Volunteer for a campaign. Stay informed and educated. Participate in your government, like attending a city council meeting or something. And run for office or encourage others to do so. That's what can make a difference. So. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, thank you. I am going to read a quick statement of support from Governor Tom Wolf. And he has here, good morning, Nepa Women's March participants. While I am unable to join all of you today, I support the efforts you're making to participate in the democratic process and ensure that your voices are heard. We all must work together to promote policies that provide women with the resources they need to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. I remain committed to partnering with you to ensure that this Commonwealth is a place where all women and girls can thrive. I remain committed to keeping Pennsylvania a place where women make their own reproductive decisions. Women should retain the right to personal freedom, personal choice, and personal liberties, and I will veto any anti-choice measures that come across my desk. I remain committed to fighting for a minimum wage so working women can put food on the table for themselves and their families. A $15 minimum wage would boost pay for 1.2 million working women in our Commonwealth, many of whom are already dealing with the gender pay gap. By raising our voices and working together, we can ensure that this Commonwealth is a place where all of us can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Our next speaker is Paige Cognetti, Mayor of Scranton.
All right. Yay, Paige! All right, Paige! Thank you. Good morning, afternoon. I think it's afternoon now. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm looking forward to getting home before it gets too bad, but I've got two cell phones here. I've got one right here, which is now the city of Scranton, to make sure the roads are being plowed up there. And then right here is my mother, who's taking care of my 4-week-old. So we're all quiet right now, which is great. So thank you to Nepa Now, Action Together, and Nepa, Queer Nepa for having us here today. I believe this is the 4th March, which is hard to believe. It is unbelievable that we've been in this kind of state of things for so long. But I think some of you know a little bit about me. I'm actually from Oregon originally and came to Nepa for my first political campaign. I was working for Chris Carney back in 2005. So I come from Oregon, which has some pretty progressive representation, some pretty progressive laws. In 2004, when John Kerry lost, it wasn't just the loss of John Kerry that disappointed me so much the day after. It was Oregon thought, and the polls showed, that we were going to pass gay marriage. And we didn't. And it was as devastating that George Bush was going to be our president again as it was to realize that people were, either the polling was really bad or people were saying something on the phone that they didn't actually do in the ballot booth. It was after that morning that I decided to move. I had already been thinking about it because of a host of things, including the decision to go into Iraq. But I moved to Washington, D.C. in 2005, and Chris Carney was the first person that hired me to come up here, help him with fundraising. And he did, in fact, beat Don Sherwood, who was the representative at the time of what was then CD10. And that was a Republican plus 14 district. I believe now it's Republican plus 20-something. So as we all know, we have a lot of work to do to get to the goals that we want to in terms of getting people into Congress and into the state legislature that are going to be supportive of the things that we're all out here for today. So coming from Oregon and then throughout my career in DC and Harrisburg and here, and now I'm the mayor of Scranton, I've always supported candidates and other representatives, and I'm thrilled that I'm now the mayor of Scranton, which already has 3 months paid maternity leave. So that was built in. So we're going to work on paternity leave and some other pieces, but Scranton is actually where, of course we need more than that, but Scranton is at least leading the way in Pennsylvania. I will say that when I first became pregnant, I was working for the Auditor General, and I went to HR, and I said, what does leave look like? This was back in the spring before I knew that there would be an open seat in the City Hall. And the HR folks, they happened to both be women, they kind of each looked at each other and kind of drew a breath, and they said, there's no paid family leave for state workers. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that there was no paid leave for state workers. It just, we all here, I think, we all are probably our friends, our family, our circles often, we know that we need to fight for these things, but there are these moments in your life where you realize just how bad it is. So I've always wanted to support these things, but sitting there, my heart sank. And this is somebody, I'm very lucky. I have a partner, a husband who works and we would be able to afford for me to take leave without getting paid. We would be okay. But even me, just that gut sink of, You mean there's no leave? I would have to take any time off with my child. It would just be me going at it without any pay. So we're part of the percentage of folks that would be able to afford it, but it would still be a burden. There are so many families, the vast majority of families out there who having a child is either not something that they can do or something that ends up wholly changing their income level, wholly changing their trajectory, changing their ability to buy a house, to pay rent, to put food on the table, changes everything about them, their lives. And so I'm even more committed now to these issues because of that moment and that fact that we're just so far behind. I mean, you know the stats, you know that of the OECD countries, the U.S. comes in last, right? We're zero on the list of 41 countries, the wealthiest countries. We're we're at number 41 at 0 weeks of paid leave, where you have, I think Estonia gives 86 weeks. I don't think we're going to get to 86 weeks. But, maybe we could get up to a few months at least and then go from there. You'd think that our legislators, both in Harrisburg, across the country, and then in D.C., would understand this better. I know Congressman Cartwright understands. We know Senator Casey understands. We know Governor Wolf understands. But we have to get more people in office that actually are going to do something about it. The fact that it becomes a partisan issue is so bizarre to all of us here. I know that none of us probably can understand that, but it does come down to us getting out there, registering more voters for the primary and then in the general this year. This is a huge year, as we all know, not just for making sure that Congressman Cartwright retains his seat and is able to keep fighting for these issues. It's so important for the state Senate and the state House. We have so many seats that we can flip in the PA state legislature, but we have to keep working. We have to work really, really, really hard. It's at the local level, and I know everybody gathered here today knows that. We need to start now, both for voting and for the census. We need to start engaging our friends and our family today as if it were October of this year, right? That's really what we need to be doing. So I'm so happy that I'm able to talk with you guys. Anybody that has ideas for how we can better lobby, not just our legislatures, but our city and our local county governments for paid leave. Again, I'm going to start up in Scranton and try to figure out what we can do better there. And hopefully I learn some lessons that I'm able to then share with other municipalities of how we're going to be able to be more progressive with the city government and what we do there. So thank you all so much for coming out and come visit us up in Scranton anytime.
Thank you. Our final speaker today is Congressman Matt Cartwright.
Anybody having fun yet? Well, listen, just because there's a little snow on the roof doesn't mean there isn't fire in the belly, does it? And I have to apologize. I left my tractor trailer at home. Hey, I want to bend your ear a little bit today about some women that I admire. Women in the past and women in the present. We talk so much about partisan politics. It's the D's versus the R's and everything we talk about, and it's a shame. I regret it sincerely, the kind of polarization that has gone on, and it makes no sense, particularly when we talk about women's rights. You know why? Look back in history right here in Pennsylvania. Who was the foremost promoter of women's suffrage in Pennsylvania? Anybody know her name? Cornelia Pinchot. That's not a name that comes right to mind, is it? Cornelia Pinchot. She was an heiress, and she was married to a wealthy man, Gifford Pinchot, and they lived in Pike County in Milford. And you can go visit their house. It's at Gray Towers. And Cornelia Pinchot used her own fortune and her own energy and her desire and her drive, and she led and paid for many, many suffragette marches in support of women's right to vote in the United States, which of course last year we passed the 100th anniversary of. Cornelia Pinchot was so successful in organizing women in Pennsylvania to get out and march that they pulled it off, and when her husband decided to run for governor, they credited Cornelia Pinchot, this Republican woman, for getting her husband elected governor because of all the women vote that Gifford Pinchot got. Yeah. So this really shouldn't be a Democrat versus Republican issue. It shouldn't. It's a human issue. Because women's rights are what? Human rights. You're gosh darn right. Cornelia Pinchot. But then I also want to talk to you about somebody else. My wife's grandmother, Marion Munley. State Representative Marion L. Munley, who served from 1947 until 1963 in Harrisburg, representing a district in the Up Valley in Lackawanna County. She served so long and so well that she was elected the first woman officer in the General Assembly of Pennsylvania. Marion L. Munley's portrait hangs in the Capitol building today. That's my wife's grandmother. And these things, these things go by the family, don't they? And young Miss Aikens, our high school student, she pointed it out. It runs by the family. And even in my own family, I want to tell you about my late mother. My mom went to law school in the 1950s. She graduated Albany Law School in 1953. And let me tell you something, that was a bastion of male dominance, the law back then. You know, you can, in fact, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's story tells the story. You know, when she went to first interview for a law job, what did they ask her? How fast can you type? Yeah, they did. My mother faced the same sort of thing. In fact, they harassed her in law school. She was one of only 2 women in the Albany Law School in the early 1950s. They gave her a hard time. Oh, here comes my truck. We can all relax now. So these things go by the family, but the fourth woman I want to tell you about that I admire is a woman in the present, and it's my wife, Marion Munley. You know, if I didn't come out here to this march, I'd be in a lot of trouble at home. You know that, right? Look, Marion's out there every day sticking up for people that need help, that need somebody sticking up for them. She is a lioness in the courtroom, and she's one of my inspirations to go out and help regular people down in Washington, D.C. So I just want to tell you, so many of the people that I admire deeply are women who stuck up for the cause, stuck up for women's rights, stuck up for other people's rights, and that's one of the things that keeps me going. But you know, it was also mentioned about the Violence Against Women Act. We passed a robust reauthorization of VAWA this year. It was one of over 275 bipartisan bills that came out of the House this year. 275 bills that have passed out of the Democratic majority House in Washington that are sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk gathering dust. Yeah. In fact, the Violence Against Women Act has more than 30 Republican co-sponsors. There is no reason for McConnell to sit on that bill, as there is no reason for him to be sitting on over 275 Republican and Democrat-supported bills sitting on his desk. And here we reach the interactive part of my speech, ladies and gentlemen. Your part is do your job. Okay, ready? Mitch McConnell, do your job. Mitch McConnell, do your job. Mitch McConnell, do your job. That's right. I don't know if he can hear us in Kentucky, but that's the thing. And why is he doing that? Because he's pushing this false narrative that all the Democrats are doing in Congress are going after Donald Trump and we're not doing anything else. How can you possibly say that when we have passed over 275 Republican-supported bills that McConnell refuses to move? The only one who's doing nothing in Washington is Mitch McConnell. Do your job. That's right. So,
demand a fair trial.
That's right. So I'm here to tell you, it's not a Republican thing, it's not a Democratic thing sticking up for women's rights. It shouldn't be, and that's why we had so many Republican co-sponsors of the Violence Against Women Act, and there ought to be more and more bipartisanship in Washington. I work for that every day. I consider it part of my job to form deep and lasting friendships with Republicans, because we're not going to get this done with just one party. We've got to come together and do things like enhance women's rights and do all of the things that make sense for America that are represented by these 275 bipartisan bills. Stand up for the environment. Is Diane Dreyer still here? Yeah. Great speech, Diane. And I'm here to tell you, thank you for coming out and braving this cold, because doing things like this bring home to us the importance of the quest that we're on, making sure America is a place for everybody, where every person can succeed. Men, women, gay, straight, white, any colored people of every sort. I'm talking, and we had a wonderful, wonderful event last night, by the way, to celebrate the Martin Luther King Day at the courthouse. I'm here to tell you, it was a wonderful thing, and it was a heartwarming presentation. Anybody know Ron Felton? Yeah, Ron Felton, president of the Wilkes-Barre chapter of the NAACP, he got up and he gave a rendition of the Martin Luther King "I Have a Dream" speech, which he has mostly committed to memory. Wow. It's unbelievable. So I was so proud to take part in that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Let's continue to advocate. Let's continue to raise our voices. Let's continue to do what Americans do best, is make democracy work by making sure all of our voices are heard. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Congressman. And thank you, everybody, for coming. We're going to end today with some musical entertainment again by Jolly Logic and the Nepa Women's March Choir. And after that, we're going to hear from Alicia Hoffman-Mirilovich, who is president of Action Together.
All right, everyone. As Cindy said, my name is Alicia Hoffman-Mirilovich, and you all know me as the president of Action Together. And on behalf of Action Together, Nepa Now, and Queer Nepa, thank you all for coming. Who are the snowflakes now? If just a little bit of business. If you ordered a t-shirt, they're ready for pickup over at the tent. If you want a t-shirt, we have plenty for sale. So hopefully I will see you all very soon, because we have a lot of work to do in 2020.